getting my driver's license, and my dad went up to upstate New York to make a deal with International Salt, and we were doing the winter salt for the roads. So, in fact, you, myself, I don't know if you were there, I think you were there, we went out on Tango till like 2 o'clock in the morning. I didn't get back over there to Seaview Avenue till 2 a.m. So I remember the office.
Was working at the plant?
Yeah, this was,
Yeah.
you know, and I was a 16-year-old kid. And you remember the office he used to have upstairs on the second floor next to his bedroom?
Yep.
There was
Yeah.
a bunk in there,
Yeah.
and that's where I was sleeping. So I go to bed at 2 a.m. and I was like, I hit the pillow and I was gone. 2 hours later, 4 a.m., the overhead light comes on.
That's pretty tough.
My grandfather is standing there, fully dressed, three-piece suit. And he says to me, your breakfast is on the table. I said, wow, 2 hours sleep. This I gotta see. I didn't know my grandfather could cook. So I go downstairs, and in the kitchen, they used to have that little breakfast thing, okay, on the north wall. He's sitting there, and he's all done eating. He's sitting, he never drank coffee, it was always hot chocolate.
Yeah.
Oh, that's where I
He's
get it
sitting there,
from.
sipping his hot chocolate, and I look over there on the opposite side, and there's 2 eggs, sunny side up, toasted bacon, and a cup of hot chocolate, and a little glass of orange juice. I said, this was worth getting up for. So we finished breakfast, not a word was said. I don't think I could even think straight, because I only had 2 hours of sleep. And we get in the car, and by that time I think it was about 4:45, and all the lights were green on there against the boulevard in Allen's Avenue, no matter what color they were. And we get down to the yard, and he opens up all the gates, goes inside the engine room, turns on the boilers. And I said to myself, I gotta find something to do, because in 2 hours of sleep, if I sit down and wait for the rest of the crew to get there, I'm gonna be asleep. So I started working around the plant, and he was spying on me to see what I was doing. I could see he would look out of the corner of the office window, and I knew if I stopped, that would have been it for the whole day. And then at 3 p.m., it was about 10 minutes of 3, I was out in the yard still fighting to stay awake. And he comes over, and all I feel is this little tap on my shoulder. And he says, come on, it's time to go home. But we got to Seaview Avenue at 3 p.m. on the dot, and he went upstairs and he put on his bathing suit with his striped shirt, and he jumped into the pool, and I went in the pool too. He did his lap, and then he did his pull-ups on the diving board. And then Emma and Etta were living there at the time, I think.
Yeah,
and I
that was
think
after
one of
my
them was
mother's
doing
death.
some cooking for dinner. And then after dinner, that was it. I was out like a light, but at 3 p.m., that was a big part of the day. 3 p.m., that was it. And the phone's ringing. He isn't going to answer it. In fact, I think it was like 3 p.m. and a half minute. And he picked up the phone, and it was somebody from the office, and he said, it's after 3 p.m. I will discuss this tomorrow. Click. And that's the way it was. He wasn't really gruff, but he was very short.
Well, we came up with a theory. I don't know if it was you and
No, you came up with it.
I came up with it.
Yeah.
Well, but somebody suggested it. Well, somebody else had said something that triggered this
You and I
idea
were
in me.
talking.
Yeah. And we came up with the idea that Grandpa Everson had Asperger's disorder. This
Yeah,
was
we talked about that, and I don't know. I remember many afternoons, Saturday afternoons, waiting for a ride home, and my dad and my grandfather would be upstairs in the office, and those two guys were arguing like a couple of little brats. It was amazing, and I never heard my grandfather speak so much. And they were going back and forth about business things and problems and all that stuff. And the final thing was, son, I still sign the checks around here. Boom. End of story. End of conversation.
Now, I was always told by Etta that when grandfather came home from the war, he was never the same. It was like today's standards of post-traumatic stress syndrome, and only they just called it shell shock back then.
right.
But from what I gather, it was really tough on
Yeah.
Grandpa when he was in the war, and it just made a huge difference in his life.
Well,
Well, you read the typewritten sheet that I had.
Yes, yes. Did I send you a
What
copy of
happened to
that?
him?
Yeah, is that the one? I think Mary might have sent me one. Did
Yeah,
you?
because
Maybe not.
I think, was it you that
Was-
gave
was
me
this
that?
where-
I gave you that. I
Yes,
had the original.
and I
About the
made a
rank?
copy of it.
About the
Yeah.
rank where
It was
He wanted
typewritten.
a full regular commission in the
Right.
U.S. Army,
And
not a
he gave the
reserve
data, right.
commission. But the West Point guys didn't allow that
Right.
because you didn't go to West Point. You can't have a full
right.
commission.
Mary sent me a copy.
You know, and my dad was the same way. He always had a reserve because the West Point boys, they said, "Nuh-uh, you're not regular Army." But if you read about what he went through out there,
Oh, I
they forgot
know.
about him. Because the battalion commander got rotated back after 2 weeks, and he had shell shock. And our grandfather was out there for like 2 months, and they forgot about him. And when he got back, oh, you got to be whacked out because you've been
Right.
out there for 2 months.
Mm.
And he had a second lieutenant that was under him, who he didn't get along with, who said that he was drinking. And that went all the way up. And that's when he got pulled back and he got in charge, he got put as the commandant of that German POW camp. Have you ever seen the photographs of that?
No.
No.
Oh, that is wild. There's a picture, a group picture, like a class picture. They're all in the bleachers, all these German POWs. And our grandfather's front row center. And all the Germans are sitting like this, and he's sitting like this.
Scan it and send it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Some of this
If I can
stuff.
find it, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we would love to see that.
And on the corner of the pictures on the edge, you can see the Springfields and the Infields pointing that smile now, boys, because you're going to get your picture taken. They were pointing a gun at him. And
But actually, he disobeyed his commanding officer, who said when they were moving forward, he said, let's go up into that farmhouse. It was a French
Yes.
farmhouse.
yes,
And he said, no, the Germans will fire on that farmhouse.
yep,
And he refused to do it, and his commanding officer at that time wrote in back that he had disobeyed. Well, then after he wrote back about that, then he took his group to the farmhouse, and my father refused it. He took his group in the woods, and the ones in the farmhouse got killed.
Yep.
Also the report of that one. And he
Yeah,
tried to
I
get the
read that.
report of the men he took and saved, and he could never get a hold of them to go to court and
that's
tell
right,
the
yeah,
Right,
because
right.
that was 1921, I think, and they were trying to have another hearing on it. And he couldn't find the witnesses anymore because they'd all mustered out of the service and they were all home and he didn't know where to find them. And then he got fed up, I think, in 1922, according to that diary, and he said, that's it, I'm all done. But he was in Hoboken after the war. He didn't get sent back to the States, I think, until September of 1919, if I remember right.
I can't remember.
And, well, that's
I don't
way
know
before my
why.
time, but I'm just going by what was written. But it's fascinating, yeah,
But it's
I
his
remember
own
about that
story.
farmhouse.
It's all
Yeah.
typewritten out today.
Yeah,
I know it because
single space,
Right.
4
Yeah,
pages.
I made
Talk
it.
about journaling.
20
I mean,
pages.
that's,
think
I thought it was
Howard has a
amazing.
copy.
It's quite a.
But there, I
journalism.
think there was a side to him that I don't think a lot of us ever saw.
No.
My father saw it because they were so close when, working in the
Well, my mother
office.
used the word autistic.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's where I got the idea of Asperger's disorder.
Yeah.
And because I think about him going out sailing in a three-piece suit, and that would be something that someone with Asperger's disorder would do. And there was several other things that were said that said, boy, that is consistent with Asperger's. Now, of course, Asperger's as a diagnosis didn't come out until 1994, if I remember right. Yeah, I think that came out. So it was, but some people say that Einstein had Asperger's disorder. And the key characteristic is, and as your mother said, that he had no male friends, that he really didn't have any friends, and that.
Sounds like you, dear.
Oh.
You're being bad.
They claim Bill Gates has Asperger's also.
Well, there's that
I
theory
heard-
out there too.
I heard
Yeah,
Thomas
it's
Jefferson.
basically a brain wiring deficit in terms of social interaction.
But
is the
didn't,
essence
but
of
didn't
it.
your grandfather, I mean, he had to drum up business and he was a successful businessman.
Well,
must have tried.
he really wasn't the go-getter that my father was.
Right. And Grandma, I heard early on, in the early days before kids, she was the one that really helped put the whole thing
Yes.
together. and keep
She
it
was
going.
she was the treasurer.
She was what?
The treasurer.
She was the treasurer of Narragansett Improvement. I found an old minute book from a board meeting that they probably had over the supper table one day. And I think Grandpa got, he was president and he got $2,800 for the year. I think this was 1932 or 33. And
Heart of the Depression.
Grandma got $1,400 for the whole year for being the secretary. But yeah, he was not really the type A personality to go out and grow a business like that. He was very organized though.
That was a lot of money.
But Grandma
Wow.
was a go-getter, and she
Yeah,
had the
she
social
was.
skills.
She was a pusher.
And
Yeah,
she
she
had the
was the
social skills
referee,
to work.
too.
Right, and he didn't.
Because there
So
was many.
it worked out well for him.
And I know that Wayne thought at one point that he had an alcohol problem, but I proposed that he was just self-medicating for post-traumatic stress disorder from the war.
That could be, man, but they couldn't drink the water over there. In fact, in that diary they were talking about, they had to drink out of the mud puddles. And the field kitchens couldn't get up to where they were because they were so far in the front lines.
Well, even in World War II, when Mother wrote back to her grandmother about the water in North Africa, they couldn't even brush their teeth in it. She said they'd buy cheap champagne to brush their teeth or anything.
Yeah,
They
it
couldn't.
was better. Yeah, wow.
Well, actually, the need for antibiotics. Charles and I read the story about penicillin, and that was developed right before, in 1940, as a response to what happened in World War I, when all the war was fought in, as you said, in farmlands of France and, well, in Europe, and all the soldiers were down in the
Trenches.
trenches where all this cow poop was. They would get wounds, and there would just be cow feces in the wounds. And feces in the all the wounds got infected, and they died from where they wouldn't have died from the wound. They just died from the infection superimposed on the wound, and they really absolutely needed the antibiotics. And the development of penicillin was to save lives from the
My
infection.
father never drank a cup of coffee after World War I. He had so much
Yeah.
coffee and nothing
Yeah.
to drink. And after my mother died, and my father used to come to Sunday dinner, and he talked a little more freely. And I remember him telling one story, you probably must have remembered it, Wayne, about he and the men hadn't had any water or any food for days, and they'd been out, and they came across this great big French railroad truck with a railroad thing, with big barrels on it, big wooden barrels, and they turned out to be wine barrels, and Grandpa shot a hole with his .45, and all the men ran over, took their helmets off, and ran over and started catching wine out of the thing that was running out from this great big wooden railroad keg.
Barrels of the wine, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think down in the office, I think, is where I still have that. It was a photo album that Grandpa took of when he married your mother at Camp Cotton in El Paso.
I never saw
And he
that.
had a picture, in fact, he still had the 3-day pass for the honeymoon. He got a 3-day pass.
Oh,
He
wow.
was,
It's one way to save money.
yeah, and they had a open air ceremony in the middle of Camp Cotton.
What's
Huh.
Camp Cotton?
That's
She
was
had
an
a wedding.
army base in El Paso, Texas, because he was in the Massachusetts National Guard and they were trying to find Pancho Villa.
That's the
They had-
stories that Grandma would
They
talk
had a
about.
military wedding,
But-
and it
Yeah.
was written up in a paper in Massachusetts, and I still have a copy of it
There you
in,
go.
in my scrapbook.
But Grandma would say he would come back with blisters on his butt from the horse riding. that they would ride, and and he would just, it was just really pretty.
I
guess.
think that was from the Mexican border. That was before.
That was Mexican. That was
Yeah,
beforehand.
when
Okay.
he was in the cavalry. When he went abroad, he was not in the cavalry.
Okay.
He didn't.
Yeah, he was a battalion commander of a machine gun battalion that had no machine guns.
Now, wasn't there a story too about coming across a big pot of sauerkraut and the Germans, and they were hungry and they managed to scare the Germans off and they all ate the
I
sauerkraut?
haven't- That's one.
No, that's no.
I don't know.
That was one I think Mother mentioned. I don't know. I don't remember much about it.
But I can remember
Another
going
one.
to,
When he got back in the States, he got a letter written in French, and it was addressed to him. And my mother was he was trying to tell my mother it was perfectly harmless. It was just about the laundry that he'd had his laundry done, and this French girl was writing to him that she still had his laundry.
Now, what did your mother do when they met? Was she a nurse or?
No, no. She was,
She was in college.
yeah, at Springfield College, and what do you call it? You study for? They had to be a gym teacher.
Oh,
Yeah, she was strong.
phys ed teacher.
Yes,
And
she
I
was.
remember Etta telling stories. The family was really upset. She was the first one in the family to go to college, and they also to scrimp and save to send her to college, and then she goes off essentially and elopes her freshman year.
Oh,
So,
Oh,
see, that sounds familiar.
she had a military,
huh?
she had a military wedding at the base, wherever it was.
Well, I'm sure, but I'm just saying,
Yeah.
the family wasn't happy.
Well, they were a little jealous of her because
I know.
she had.
Well, she was the youngest, and she got
And then
preferential
they didn't like
treatment.
it when she married better than they did and went up in the world.
So it's all interesting. You get bits and pieces from different places.
Mom, how tall was your mother?
Mine, she was built like mine.
Yeah, but
How tall? At her tallest, when she was young, how tall was she?
I don't know. She's just taller than myself, taller than
She was about 5'8" when I was 5'8".
Yeah.
She might have been up to as much as 5'9", but she was 5'8" when I was 5'8". We were the
Now, how
same
tall
height.
was Grandpa?
6 foot.
Because my mother always told me that Grandma was 5'11". She was like an inch shorter than Grandpa.
No, never,
No, okay.
never.
Well, and at my height, I mean, everybody looks tall, so I can't tell.
She was probably a little taller, just in stature anyway, because I remember when my father and and grandfather would have an argument at lunch, they used to go to Seaview Avenue for lunch.
Right,
during the
I
week.
She
remember
wore
that.
heels.
And,
that could
oh,
have been
maybe
it.
that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking of. And my father and grandpa would be going at it, and she'd come out there and say, that's it, cut it off. And they'd go back and be quiet and finish lunch.
So it's true. Say she was 5'9" and had 2-inch heels. Right there, put
Yeah, that
5'11".
might get you 5'11", yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know.
But Charles Beauvais said if it weren't for Kirk, that company would never have gone as far as it did.
No, it's true.
As much as they fought with each other, Charles and Kirk.
Oh, but they fought, but it was a disagreement, I think.
Yeah.
Because 5 minutes later, they would calm down. They wouldn't,
Yeah.
they never held a grudge that I could tell. That was, I thought, was a
But it's
good
just
thing.
business.
I was impressed with that, because the next question came up, and it was back to a civil tone of voice, and it was logical, deductive reasoning in the discussion, but, soon to be escalated into something else. But I think the best one was, do you remember Kirk B. Everson Jr. trucking?
No.
I think it was 1960. We had no Christmas presents. And we all come down, I'm a little kid, and here we go, right, come downstairs, nothing under the tree. What, is Santa Claus dying? Right, so we go. We're all little kids, all right?
You would have been 7, 6 or 7 then.
Yeah, about 7. And so my older sisters, they're all disgusted and frustrated and all that stuff. So we're waiting for Mom and Dad to come out. And my mother was really quiet, didn't say anything. And my father came out and he says, well, you want to go see your Christmas present? And we were going over to Seaview Avenue that day for the Christmas dinner for everybody to get together. Well, we're going to make a stop and show you your Christmas present. So I'm thinking, wow, this is so big, you couldn't bring it home.
Yeah, maybe a horse or something. I would be excited to ride.
You were in Danielson at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So we drive down to the yard. And there was 4 brand new Ford dump trucks there. And he goes, Mary,
what?
there was 4 brand new dump trucks.
Oh.
Mary, there's yours. Peggy, there's yours. Danny, there's yours. John, there's yours. And I'm so young and naive. Hey, I want to go drive it. And everybody's all upset and everything else. My mother's quiet. And what he had done is he took his back pay, which he hadn't taken out, and he went to the truck dealer, and he bought 4 trucks with it. And he put Kirk B. Everson Jr. Trucking on it, the same sign, logo, the round meatball, the red thing and all that, And when Grandpa saw that, I remembered that because Willie was in the shop when I was hanging around.
I remember Willie.
Yeah, Willie Aquilante.
Yeah, I remember Willie.
And he went over there to Willie and he says, you go take those signs off those trucks and put Narragansett Improvement on it. And my father was a little, see, my father was taking his pay and he took his back pay that he didn't need at the time because there was plenty of food on the table. And he was going to get the income from his pay plus the trucks. You know, climbing that corporate ladder. My father, you know, Grandpa said, no way. Because in Grandpa's mind, that was still company money. I don't care if you think it's your back pay. And I went through some things like that with my father too when I was climbing up the little ladder. But I thought that was kind of interesting. And then we went to Seaview Avenue. Remember Grandpa used to give us a check for $5?
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay?
Yep.
We get home, everybody's got a check for $5. And my father says, all right, everybody put your checks on the table. You pick out a charity of your choice, and you send that check to that charity. And the next Christmas, the following year, was a heck of a Christmas because we all appreciated it a lot more. I'll tell you. And I still wanted to drive the dump truck. I didn't have any hard feelings. I thought it was a great idea. So then one Saturday I'm down there and I get into my dump truck and I'm driving it. Didn't understand about air brakes. So I start the truck up, take off, and I couldn't make the turn. Crash right through the garage door, the back of the building that used to be next door. It was a liquor store, or I forget what it was. Saturday afternoon, crash, right? And all this dust is flying. And whenever I had a calamity down there, either my dad or Grandpa would come walking around the corner before the dust settled. Oh, man.
How did they know?
Radar. You know? So, I remember I even got it from my mother on that one, because it was during the winter months. And there's no money coming in this time of year, you know, you really shouldn't be causing expenses like this, you know, it's hard to make ends meet and all this. And I said, yeah, Ma, I know, I already got it from my dad. I gotta get it from you too. But it was other lessons too.
Well, didn't you tell him it was your truck?
No, I didn't think about that.
Howard would have.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, what are you talking to me about? This is my truck.
Good, you paid for the damage and not because the whole building did.
Yeah, I didn't have insurance on it either.
Oh.
Well, I remember a time that I was, working at the plant one of those summers, and I was driving the compressor truck. I don't remember why, but they sent me on errands, and I was driving. And the thing about the compressor truck is it's really top heavy in the back, you know. And you take a turn real quick, it's like whoa, right, all over the place. But anyways, I don't remember what errand they sent me on, but I was in like Atwell's Avenue or somewhere like that in Providence, and I was backing into a parking spot. I was probably, like I said, I was either 17 or 18 or something like that when I worked there. And this greaser guy comes along with his, like hot rod type car, and he clips the bumper on the compressor truck, and just pulls the bumper out. Well, I was like backing into a parking spot, and he hit me. Well, this guy, best defense is an offense. And he came at me like, "What's the matter with you?" And like it was my fault, right? And so I'm like, I'm sorry, and this is gave him all the information about the plant and all this kind of stuff. So, anyways, finally I get back and I talk to my Uncle Kirk and says, I'm sorry. I mean, this is what happened. He says, "Wait a minute." He says, "Did you hit him or he hit you?" He says, "Oh no, he hit me." I goes, "I'll take care of this." So the guy, and I was there, the guy calls up the plant, wants, payment for his, his damaged car and stuff like that. And I remember Uncle Kurt tearing into this guy. "You took advantage of this 17-year-old kid. You hit him, and we should be suing you for the damage to our truck. What's the matter with you?" He really laid into that guy. I'll tell you, it was good. And then Willie took the truck, and he just, the bumper was sticking out like this. He just rammed it into the wall and
Nice.
took care of the
Yeah,
truck.
the body work was rather rude and crude.
Oh, I know, because I spent a summer doing it. They hired me to do the body work on those trucks.
Oh, you,
And I was like 17. Yeah.
Doing it on
I was 17 years old. I mean,
Nice.
showed me how to do it. But I did learn because I remember the Rambler station wagon had a couple of rust holes in the back, and one night I took it into the plant on my own time, and after work, and had gotten the proper color paint from the Rambler people, and sanded it all down with the tools and put the Bondo in there and sprayed it and brought it back, showed Dad the next day. Boy, he was really impressed. That's amazing. You can hardly tell those big, huge. This is like rust through spots. And he was impressed. But of course, about 8 months, another year, it was back.
Did you have the push buttons then?
Push
Yes.
buttons.
Yes.
Yeah, I did too.
But the push
Wasn't that
button,
neat?
no shift or anything. This Rambler station wagon had push buttons on the left-hand side. For, drive, reverse. Pull.
Seats
sure?
weren't way
That's
down.
funny. I didn't remember
Seats
that.
folded all the way
I
back.
thought that was the.
Okay, the
There's
Rambler
an
station
analog.
wagon. The Rambler station wagon looked so bad that when I was dating Sue, we used to stop, at Bristol Auto Body, rather than park, at the Holt Park or something like that where it might not be unsafe. Where we just pull in among the wrecks at Bristol Auto
Oh,
Body.
a work in progress? Blended in?
This is
Is that
before
where
I
you
fixed
went-
it, of course.
Is that where you would park it with Sue?
Yeah, at Bristol Auto Body.
No one would suspect,
I think that's a first.
Yeah.
Instead of washing the submarine races where the cops would pull you over.
That's a new one.
Go into I hadn't heard that one before. That's a good one.
That is funny.
Creative.
Dump looking car into the auto body.
Yep, and that's the one that had the fold-down seats, if you remember.
Whoa.
right?
Whoa.
Famous car.
Yeah, I think I went on a few dates in that car too.
I think we're in TMI land.
Information. Charles is saying too much information.
Yeah, don't shock your mother.
Tips.
He wants a Rambler.
So you're talking about push button cars, actually our Prius, you don't need, the keys can be in your pocket, you just push the power button, turns the on button in the car.
It's a
I
bit
like
of getting
that.
used to,
Then you
yes.
can't even tell if it's on.
And if you go in the car without the keys and it says, you push the button and it'll say, big sign say, key cannot be located. I know, I can't find it, that's why I'm in here without the key, you stupid thing.
He cannot be detected.
That's right. You got
Cause I
one?
got one too, I got a Camry hybrid.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Yeah, I got the Camry. He cannot be detected.